Hello, my name is Kelly Doyle Bailey, and I am so happy that you're here today to join me for yet another SEL 101 for educators, administrators, support staff, anyone who's going back to school with our students and is really looking to um, have more or a deeper sense of knowing and understanding for social emotional needs really for us as adults as we get ready to head back to doing the big work of educating our students, whether that's in person or through a hybrid or through online remote learning. We really need to be looking at ourselves and building our own emotional intelligence because this is big work. And the needs are huge, and just the level of uncertainty that everybody's been under across the state of Maine. So I hope that you have had an opportunity to take advantage of the SEL 101 self-awareness, which was the first part of a 5-part series. Last week I also uploaded an SEL 101 for self-management. And this week, we're going to be moving towards our understanding of our social responsiveness and our social awareness, which really taps into our ability to be empathetic and compassionate and see the value of humanity, the uniqueness of each one of us. And so, as we know, that really begins with our own self-reflection and our ability to manage ourselves and cope with stress, but also to then be able to have empathy and compassion and care for others. And really looking through that through an equity lens, which is so important and necessary, especially now. So like I always do, I'm going to start by screen sharing and making sure that we're up and running. Hopefully all of you can see this. Starting my slideshow from the beginning. Here we go. So SEL 101, Social Awareness for Educators. It's no longer July, but I did make these slides up in July, so not that it matters. What is social awareness really? Remember, when we're talking about emotional intelligence, we're really talking about what Daniel Goldman did in 1995, and that was really to be looking at emotional intelligence of humans for companies in order for them to be more productive in the workforce, and how to get along with people, and for teamwork, and just being able to take other people's perspectives. And that meant that we had to be able to step outside of our own kind of thinking and to be able to have a bigger, broader perspective and really a bigger, broader respect for others. We know that the last 10 years, really, social emotional learning, mindfulness, understanding about the brain has really become big in education. And we know now that our brain is neuroplastic and that we can connect new neural pathways. And we also have a big understanding of trauma and ACEs. And so, you know, we have students that are coming into our classrooms and their ability to socialize with others. They may be on a spectrum of, they have high awareness of that and able to navigate the social landscape, or they may have very limited ability. We also know some of our students who are on the autism spectrum have difficulty with just understanding the social dynamics of humans. And so really this is about our awareness of human understanding and how behaviors for social situations are different, and that these things occur in a variety of our environments across cultures. In order to do this, we really have to have a good perspective of others and to be able to empathize with them. And this also includes all human beings from diverse backgrounds and cultures. Really looking into the equity elaborations, really being able to discern the importance of diversity, helping to build within our students an understanding of meaning of diversity in contexts and climates, being able to recognize the cultural demands and opportunities of others around the world, and really just being looking at that from a place of efficacy and agency and integrity. I love that picture, by the way. So whoever did that artist is very talented. So how do we do this? How do we develop social awareness, and how do we do that through and leverage this through an equity lens? Really, this is a necessary skill for all human beings to learn and to develop healthy social awareness, we really need to be able to take the perspective of somebody else. So being able to think about what it might be like to walk in someone else's shoes, to have empathy, and remember that empathy has to happen and start with empathy for ourselves and self-compassion. We need to be able to appreciate and understand diversity, have respect for all humans, and really have true communication skills, interpersonal communications and interpersonal communications. What is the self-talk? What is my awareness about myself? And how does that filter out through my behaviors towards others? So research really shows that empathy is partly an innate and partly learned skill. Anyone can improve empathy, but it must be a conscious effort. And so we have to start by looking at how well do I empathize with other people. Remember, this is very different than having sympathy for someone, feeling sorry for them. Empathy is really about having the ability to maybe put yourself in someone else's circumstance and really feel how that might be for that human being. So in this module, we're going to really challenge ourselves to experience and push ourselves outside of that comfort zone. One of the things that we can do when we build social awareness is to really step away from that which we know and that which is comfortable. And oftentimes that can trigger and kick up fear for us. We don't like typically to go outside of the things that are comfortable and known for us. Uncertainty is, can be very anxiety provoking, and which is, taps into that fear. We go back to that neurobiology piece that we've been talking about all along, understanding that when we feel safe, connected, and loved and supported, we're accessing the prefrontal cortex and we're able to make, reasonable decisions. We are able to take on tasks which might be a little bit difficult for us, but we have the neurochemistry to support our executive functioning. But if we're in that fight, flight, freeze, if we're in that amygdala, protective brain, we're in survival. Remember, the neurochemistry will not support that. And so what we're doing is we're practicing being uncomfortable on purpose. And we're doing that with things that we're curious about. So for example, maybe you've always wanted to try a musical instrument or a new hobby or study a different language. Maybe develop a new professional competency, do the things that we've wanted to do, but we haven't quite dared to do that. So, and when we do those things with a sense of being humble, then we can have some empathy for ourselves that we're doing our best and we're doing it hard. And that's really what we talk about with the key to empathy is our ability to be humble and to have a little bit of humility. And that's really the enabler of empathy. Goodness, I keep moving this around and I need to be able to see the screen too. So find a new environment. What does this look like? Get out of our usual environment. We need, obviously right now we're not in a position in our country or across the world to really be traveling, especially to new places and experiencing new cultures. Whenever we do that, whenever we truly do that, it gives us a better appreciation for other people. I remember the first time I ever went on an airplane. I believe I was a sophomore in college and I went to New Orleans. I grew up in a little teeny tiny town in Maine, on the coast of Maine. All of my mother's people were lobstermen. We were hardworking, blue collar people. My father's people were from New York. My dad was in the Coast Guard. The farthest I'd ever been is in a car to go see my Nana Pop, in New York. And New York City was a huge culture shock, but not as much to other people who maybe had never been to New York, because that was a place that I had come to know. And so it was familiar to me. And so I thought that you might like to experience some virtual cultural experiences. So there's a really awesome website. It's a YouTube website that can take you all around the globe. So please take a minute to jot down this link or go on YouTube and look for free virtual experiences anytime that you can do that, and kind of just sink into the curiosity of a different culture, and just watch it from the lens of curiosity and interest. And we'll always go to fear and judgment if we aren't stepping out with just some curiosity about something new. So this is just a great way to practice it. It's a mindful practice to do that. Get feedback from other people that you trust and respect, especially people who may be from different parts of the globe. Asking for feedback about your relationship skills, listening on purpose, and um, be self-assured enough that if these people care about you and you can trust them, that they're not going to be telling you this with any hidden agenda to hurt you. But talk to family and friends and colleagues, and then check in with them periodically to see how you're doing. Talk to them about talk to people who are different from you and learn from them. Have a conversation and really explore your heart, right? When we explore the heart and not just the head, then we can really open up the pathway of congruence. So what I mean by that is that the heart and the mind, the brain and the body are all in an integrated, connected place, and nothing is in strife with us. You can read literature that explores personal relationships and emotions, and even doctors, young doctors. It's been empathy when we talk to people who are studying to be physicians, and it's very scientific. When they take a course in empathy, that it has really shown to improve that piece of themselves, because we can get very clinical, or people can become very clinical when they're giving a diagnosis, and that's something, having a good bedside manner versus a bad bedside manner, or something that needs to be developed. And so that also speaks to us as educators. Those teachers, remember, students will always remember the teachers that they had connections with, and the reason that they feel connected is because there's a piece of us, there's a heartfelt sense of connection with us, and so they'll always remember the people that they didn't connect, and that maybe something that kicks up for them shame and blame, or judgment, or the strife piece. And we don't ever remember the mediocrity of just teachers in between, faces and places, they just all blend in. But we will always remember those people that really touched our hearts and our lives, and we felt connected by, and empathy and compassion is the catalyst for that. So this person says empathy is walking a mile in someone else's moccasins. Sympathy is being sorry for their hurt feet. So what is it like to walk in another person's shoes with compassion and not sympathy? I just really have to take a moment to show you this quick video. It's perspective taking, and it's called What's It Like to Walk in Another Person's Shoes. Under the surface is what that's called, and I've seen it now 10 or 12 times. Worked with many people through the Department of Education recently while we have been in this world of COVID and remote learning. And every time I show that video, every time, it doesn't matter how many times I've seen it, I still have that sense of it's our obligation and responsibility to truly, truly, truly pay attention to people and to care about them and to see them all people. You know, I remember going through automaticity. I remember going through life just from one thing to the next. And I remember how I needed to relearn about seeing and caring and not just really trying to survive through my day, you know, getting in the car and coffee in the hand and driving to my school. And before I even know it, I'm driving into the parking lot, parking in the very same space that I always park in, noticing that the same people are in front and back and side to side, you know, and we just get into these automatic ruts of our life, and we don't take moments to truly see each other and to truly see ourselves and what we need in any given moment by self-reflection, which is really that first emotional intelligence competency. How am I feeling right in this moment? And where does that feeling live in my body? And then through the self-management piece, what am I doing to take care of myself? Am I overriding systems? Am I noticing if my heart is beating very fast? Am I noticing if I'm thirsty or I need to use the restroom? Am I noticing, you know, that I'm going a mile a minute? Am I noticing that I'm walking around with my shoulders up around my ears? What am I noticing? And all of those things, if I'm not paying attention to who I am and how I am, and I'm not taking care of myself and being a regulated, compassionate, understanding, and forgiving soul to myself, and having a practice of loving kindness and slowing things down and breathing on purpose, being mindful that I'm alive and that I have a purpose, then what energy am I bringing out to other people? And how are the children and people in my own family mirroring what I'm giving out? And if I'm in a withdrawn or inflection place, and I'm always in that protective place, then I'm not going to be open to other people. Other people are going to scare me. Other situations are going to scare me, or I'm going to look at them through the lens of judgment. So just in this still small moment, my invitation is for us just to take a pause and just ask yourself, how do you feel right this moment? How do you feel after watching a video like that? And where does that sit for you? And then moving into a place of purposeful mindfulness just to breathe. Because for some of us, that kicked up our own triggers of past lives and situations we had to get through. And for some of us, we've never had to deal with those things, but know that in small moments, suffering occurs. So just notice your feet, planting yourself on the floor, feeling grounded. Just doing a gentle grounding practice of noticing what you hear. Paying attention to what you see. Allowing your body just to relax and feel held by the chair or couch or floor, wherever you're sitting. Notice what you smell. Notice small sensations of tactile stimulation. Maybe your arms making contact with the arms of the chair, the back of your legs making contact with the seat. Maybe still very small sensations like the hair on the top of your forehead, or a small itch, or pain, or discomfort. And just taking a second to allow your breathing to regulate, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, and just noticing from a mindful place the expansion of the belly and the chest when you breathe in through your nose. Holding on for just a second or two, and then fully out through the mouth. We'll do a couple cycles of in through our nose and out through our mouth. Just continuing with your breathing, and every now and then throughout this webinar, just checking in with yourself, naturally just asking and paying attention to the breath. And if you notice your mind is wandering, which we know is the tool of the mind, and we don't have to judge it, we can just notice it with curiosity. We have practice, mindful strategies such as RAIN, recognizing, right, allowing, investigating, and then non-judgment. Practice bringing yourself back if you notice while I'm talking that you're having a memory or having a thought or making a plan. And again, that is the job of the mind, to wander. When we practice that and we see how tricky it is for ourselves, and then we put small moments in our teaching with students to help them with mind wandering, then we have their attention and we build the capacity for sustained attention and focus. Remember, ask yourself, who taught you how to pay attention on purpose? Did you learn how to see on purpose and hear on purpose? Did you learn to smell on purpose? Or do you just let life pass you by and you just see and not recognize colors and shapes and have gratitude and compassion for your sight? Do you just hear and not pay attention to the sounds and the tones, the prosody, the up and down, the rhythm? Taste, mindless eating, thinking about, does one potato chip taste so good, or do you not recognize that one is tasty and salty and crunchy because a whole handful goes in? These are just some of the practices that you can do to be more mindfully aware. Again, what does this have to do with social awareness? When we become aware of our own cues of our own body and we become more mindfully intentional in our lives, we are just more careful and more accepting of ourselves and our flaws, our strengths, our needs, our values, our gaps in our learning. And then we can recognize that those gaps in other people are not something that makes them good or bad, but that they're in their path of still learning too. All of us on the planet Earth are doing the best we can with the knowledge that we know based on the experiences that we've had. And we do better once we acknowledge that and recognize it, right? And so having compassion for other people is first seeing that they're there and not taking their experiences of suffering and making it about us, because it's not personal. And when we step outside of that, that the whole world doesn't revolve around just us, me, my needs, and that the needs of other people in that moment could be great, and I can have compassion and care. What might it like be? What might it like be like to walk in that person's shoes? Not judgment, with empathy. Okay, so let's see if I can move us on. Next is examining our own biases. And boy, are we in the thick of it right in this place and time. The killing of George Floyd was horrendous and horrible and unnecessary, and it has brought about a country and the voice of all of people who care about humanity in such a big way. And we are noticing more than ever right now how we have to pay attention right here in Maine, in our teaching, to be courageous educators and not to dismiss color and not to make it okay to be colorblind, but to see and really look at our own implicit biases, to examine those, to unpack them, and not to make it anything but new learning for us. It's not our fault if we didn't know, but it is our fault if we continue not to know and not make it our business to know. And so this is about, what is it? Where did I come from? What things were taught to me that may or may not have been okay? Can I question them? How was I conditioned to think? And so sometimes these things are hidden and sometimes they're not so hidden, and they really interfere with our ability to listen and empathize with human beings. And remember, these things often center around the visible factors such as race and age and gender. And so if you don't think you have biases, you do need to think again, because we all do. Every single one of us has implicit biases. And it's our business and it's our obligation and it's our responsibility to do better by our children, beginning with our parenting with our own children and educating our babies all the way up to our big humans, so that we can build a place that is based on equity and love and kindness and understanding and forgiveness and forward movement. So a willingness to investigate our implicit biases really starts with knowing that we all do have them, and it's not a flaw, but it is a gap in our learning. And so this is a universal phenomenon right now. It is not limited by our gender, our race, or our country of origin. And so Harvard has put out a beautiful implicit bias test. And if you just Google implicit bias test, Harvard University, I think it's a 15 sort of, it jumps us around all over the place. I've taken it several times and I'm always surprised and humbled by what comes about for me. And we might think that we're very, we're not racist. It's not enough to be not racist. We need to be anti-racist. We need to go above and beyond to help our children know that those implicit biases are in there. And it's our job to unpack them and to investigate them with kindness, non-judgment, and then do better. So again, what is implicit bias? It's our thoughts and feelings that are implicit and that we're unaware of them. If we're unaware of them or mistaken about their nature, we need to investigate. We have a bias when, rather than being neutral, we have a preference or aversion to a person or a group of people. So thinking about that, what are my thoughts on this particular group of people, human beings versus that group? When we use the term implicit bias to describe, we use it to describe when we have attitudes towards people or associated stereotypes with them. And it may be in our conscious knowledge or conscious knowing. I'm reading here, the fairly commonplace example of this is when in studies that show white people will often frequently associate criminality with Black people, even without realizing that they're doing it. So thinking about when you're in the city or anywhere and you're walking down the street and a Black person is walking towards you, what is your go-to? Do you walk by and say hello, or do you cross the street? Where is that? People of color, people who wear different clothes. What are the stereotypes that we have been conditioned to believe about other humans and not even having an opportunity to get to know them first? So this is why it matters. The mind sciences, which truly there is such a thing as mind sciences, and actually Johns Hopkins University has a PhD in mind, brain, and education, which is beautiful, and I'm so excited to see that out there in the world. But the mind sciences have found that most of our actions occur without the conscious thought, and it allows us to function in our extraordinarily complex world. So again, when we're in a mindless place, we're not paying attention on purpose to things that we're thinking. We push them aside. This often means, however, that our implicit biases predict how we'll behave in a more conscious place. Multiple studies have also shown that with higher implicit biases levels against Black people, we are more likely to categorize non-weapons as weapons, such as a phone for a gun or a comb for a knife, and we know that has happened. We know that has happened. And in computer simulations, we are more likely to shoot an unarmed person, which is terrifying. Similarly, white physicians who implicitly associate Black patients with being less cooperative were less likely to refer Black patients with acute coronary symptoms for thrombolysis or specific medical care. Again, physicians who have implicit biases will interfere with people getting the care that they need based on the biases that the physicians have. So this is, if you want to know more about mind sciences and implicit biases, I highly recommend that you do some digging into that, because I was just blown away by some of the things that I saw and didn't recognize even within myself. So what can we do about it? What we can do about it is teach courageously. That's what social awareness is. It begins with ourself. Brene Brown, most of you know who this exceptional human being is, and she says it and tells it like it is. Courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. Social sciences are in the early stages of determining how to de-bias. It's clear that media plays a huge role in stereotyping how we see how people are typecast in movies and TV, institutions, how we treat people in hospitals, in our judicial system, the school to prison pipeline, our at-risk students, knowing that students who have high ACE scores, are more likely to commit crime. And so what does it mean to teach courageously? It means that we have to start paying attention to the biases that we are teaching, and through our own omission of the things that we should be teaching. So is your classroom set up to have everyone be seen in the books that are in our classrooms? Do you have books of students of color and students with disabilities in your classroom? Do we talk about it? Or are we the teacher that says, I don't have to pay attention to that because I really work in a predominantly white school, in a predominantly white state, with no children of color in my classroom? And we don't know until we do know if that child has a person of color as a parent, or maybe has been adopted. So it's about peeling back the scales of our eyes and really paying attention on purpose. And that means you're mindfully aware of who you are as an educator and what you're doing. So step one for educators, there are a few steps here that I'm going to go through. We recognize that biases exist, but we don't necessarily recognize our own personal biases. This is our first step, is unpacking and really looking. That's why that Harvard implicit bias test is really super important. Step two for educators, we recognize our own personal biases, and we do then take steps to articulate such in a learning space with our students. Calling, attention and understanding to things that are right and wrong, and know that we're still learning, and not through this shame and blame, but hey, when, having examples, actual examples of this. Step three, we recognize historical and contemporary roots of personal biases and regularly reflect. This goes back to our self-awareness on how individuals who are different are treated in our learning spaces. That's tough, because that means we can't be on automatic pilot, whether we're real time or on a Zoom call with our students. We have to recognize and reflect and think. How are other people, how are our children treated in learning spaces? Step four, we recognize personal biases and we increase our comfortability in leading uncomfortable discussions across lines of differences in our learning spaces, especially with our older students. We cultivate curiosity. This goes back to our mindful practices. Cultivate your own sense of curiosity within yourself. Look at the ugly spaces or the things that you have deemed ugly about yourself. And be kind. Thinking about how you have, or I have, or we have characterized somebody, or if we notice that we get territorial, or we kick up, or we lean outside instead of leaning into our differences. When we're curious, then we will allow ourselves to ask lots of questions, which leads to developing a stronger understanding of all people around us. There are bonds. We break down the walls of defensiveness. And saying things like, I'm curious how you feel about this, or I'm curious to know. It's really about that language of intentionality, remember? Choice words. We appreciate diversity and teach this skill to ourselves first and then to our students. How beautiful our world is because we are different. And how dull it would be if we all had the same color hat. One of our responsibilities when we increase our social awareness is to really become dedicated to cultural responsivity. And when we're really culturally responsive teachers, one of our major goals is to help all students become respectful of all the cultures and people that they will interact with once they leave your class. And sometimes this can be an incredibly daunting task, given that the world at large is infinitively more complex and diverse than anything that we really even know, right? Or anything, any microcosm that we are living in. But taking an opportunity to show our students just how big and beautiful and exciting the world can be, because the news is very insightful, or what I want to say is incites a lot of fear sometimes in us. We don't know the news that parents watch. We don't know how scared students can be of other people. And so when we become culturally responsive, we break down stereotypes and we break down, we demystify people. And it comes right down to the heart of it, that we're all beating hearts on one planet. So we tend to gravitate towards what is familiar and see and avoid that which makes us uncomfortable. When we do that, just know that we're sitting in a place of fear. And that when fear controls us, when we are driven and led by fear, the neurochemistry of the body supports that. And mindful practices helps us get out of that. So again, like we did last time with self-management and self-regulation, this is me feeling sad. Okay, sadness, thanks for showing up. Maybe I need to sit with sad for a little bit. But how long do I need to sit with sad when it's no longer benefiting me or my family or my friends in any good way? And maybe saying to sadness, thank you, sadness, for showing up, because without you, I would never know what true joy and happiness really feels like and means for my life. And so not being led or ruled by our emotions, because remember, emotions drive attention and attention drives our learning and our responsiveness to our world. So just recognizing when we're gravitating towards the familiar because we're afraid of the things that make us uncomfortable, and breaking that down. And that's practicing discomfort on purpose. So maybe driving a different way to work, or reading a book that maybe you never have read before because you've been afraid of the content, or having conversations with people that you've never had a conversation with before and you've just been curious about them but too afraid to talk to them. Hey, I'm curious, could we have a cup of coffee? I'd love to get to know who you are. Culturally responsive instruction is a must. We can help show our students that differences in viewpoints and cultures are meant to be cherished and appreciated and valued and respected and not to be judged or feared. I look at this picture and I see potential and possibility and beauty in every single set of eyes looking back at me. So taking the moment to be present in your life, be mindfully aware of your duty and obligation and responsibility to be courageous teachers, to teach from a culturally responsive place. It changes the climate, it's trauma informed, it is best practice, and your students, little and big, feel connected and they feel like they are wanted and belong. And then they go out in the world and continue that practice of belonging and accepting. So how to do this: provide students with evidence that people who don't look or act like them are still people just like them. Have pictures of different people in your classrooms. Encourage your students to take a trip around the world virtually. Encourage them to read and to explore. Listen and teach students about multicultural role models. When we do this, we demonstrate that people of all gender and ethnicities and appearances can have a positive influence on the world, and that all people deserve to be respected and to be thought highly of. Use your classroom spaces, use your online learning platforms, mindfully pay attention to your classroom environments and set them up for a culturally responsive learning space and place where everyone feels welcome, everyone feels seen, everyone is counted. Use wall spaces to display posters of cultural groups and not in a non-stereotypical way. Encourage your students to explore countries of their own ancestry. If they're fortunate enough to have elderly people in their lives, to interview them, hear stories. Have signs made of different languages, not just English language. We know that these experiences help to shape students and their understanding of culture and diversity. It demystifies, it helps them to see the connectedness of people from diverse backgrounds that are just like us. They just have their own culture. And then we can teach students to embrace their own culture and their own heritage. Minority students can sometimes feel the pressure, right, to dispose of their cultural norms and behaviors and traditions in order to fit in to our socially prevalent order. And when this happens, it can create a really significant disconnection between the culture that the student is coming from, and it really interferes with their own emotional growth and their social development. And it can often result in really poor performance, and it just devalues who they are. So celebrating who they are and not asking or expecting students to fit into this culture, but celebrating that their culture has something to add to the beauty of what you have in your classroom. And so seeing a student who comes in from a different culture not as anything but a gift to be a good teacher to you. And remember, mirror neurons. Your students will watch the way you respond and react to a student of color or families of color or other educators from different cultures, and they will mirror that. Investigate your own heritage. I love these Two Humans t-shirts. Talk to a young person, they know cool stuff you don't. Talk to an old person, they know cool stuff you don't. So just talk to people, talk to your family members about cultural practices and traditions. Write, encourage your students to write, or you, I, me, you, all of us, take a moment to disengage in the mundane, whatever it is that we're doing, and pick up the phone if you still have a person in your life who is older than you, who has experiences that you didn't take the time to learn about. Take the time to know about your own culture and your own ancestry, and develop your social skills and pay attention on purpose to situations in your life with curiosity and interest. In our social awareness, we are really asked to notice body language. Nonverbal communication is just as really important as verbal communication. And non-assumption and not taking things personally when somebody's walking past you with a face like this. Notice what other people's nonverbal communication might be triggering in you. So if somebody walks by you and they don't seem to be happy, do you take on that unhappiness as something you said or did or had done in the past? Or do you just hold space for that person and say, in your mind, so-and-so's having, it appears that this person is having a tough day, and hold space for them and wish loving kindness towards them? What I mean by that, saying to yourself inside your mind, I hope you're well and safe and healthy, free from pain and suffering. I wish you well. Instead of, wonder what's wrong with that person. Well, that person's been walking around for a week with a sour look on her face. Just like that film that we saw, maybe that person just found out that her husband has been diagnosed with a terminal illness, or lost the job, or a car was stolen, or their child is sick. We walk around sometimes when we're mindless in a very selfish place. And so when we practice that loving kindness, may you be well and safe, and we do that in that place of true heartfeltness, then we don't take on other people's suffering in a personal way, if that makes sense. So listen on purpose. When we practice being a mindful and active listener, we're not listening to formulate a sentence or response back. We are actually really listening to gain insight and understanding and perspective. So a really great practice is within your own home, or if you're with a group of people doing this webinar. One of the activities that I've done in the past is to have people pair up, and typically pair up with somebody that you normally wouldn't interact with. So when I do this with groups of teachers or students, they pick a number, and whoever has that number, that's their partner. And for 5 minutes, you partner up, and if you're the listener, you just sit and listen without giving you give zero verbal feedback, but you listen on purpose and you anchor yourself. So every single time while your partner is talking, you notice that you're having a memory or something they said, it has triggered a thought for you, or you catch yourself disengaging and making a plan or mind wandering. You anchor yourself back by saying, listening on purpose. And listen intently. The only invitation is for you just to give feedback of encouragement. You can nod or smile, but don't ask any questions. So this is tricky, because to speak for 5 minutes about anything that you want to speak about and have somebody intently listen can kick up a lot of stuff for us. This has been a really interesting practice. So if you have somebody at home and you can do that, or if you are somewhere and you can ask somebody to be your partner for this, tell them you're practicing being a mindful listener. And then you then become the speaker and ask them to be the active listener. And just notice what you notice. Notice, how does this activity make me feel? Where do I feel that in my body? Do I lean into the task? Do I pull away from the task? Is it painful for me? Is it super, am I resisting it? Do I notice the suffering that occurs for me? It's just, we have to learn to listen on purpose. Thinking about how many times we ask our kids to listen and pay attention, but we don't practice listening on purpose. Another great way to do this is to have a singing bowl, or just any kind of musical instrument, and play it, and allow students to listen until the sound is gone. Or sometimes classrooms have really loud ticking clocks, and you can ask students to tune into the ticking. When they hear it, thumbs up. And then they'll notice as they become engaged in listening, then they no longer hear the clock. Practicing listening on purpose. You heard me say a few seconds ago, holding space for others and yourself. This allows for small moments to pause for yourself and other people. Hold space, and you do it with curiosity and a loving kindness. And when the way we do this for ourselves is when we notice that there's something tricky and hard coming up for ourselves, we say, I'm going to hold space for myself. I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to have empathy and compassion that I'm doing the best I can right now. And maybe I'm fried and there is no more. And with the acknowledgement that we can get this way sometimes ourselves, we can have a little bit more empathy and compassion for other people who are just doing the best they can day by day. Invest in your character development. So there are 6 virtues and 24 character strengths of human beings. And you can find this on www.character.org. These are the character strength traits. They are in 6 different categories. One is transcendence, the appreciation of beauty and excellence, spirituality, gratitude, hope, and humor. And then there's temperance, which is forgiveness and mercy, humility and being modest, prudence, and then self-regulation. So you can see how these character traits go hand in hand with SEL. Justice is the 3rd. It's citizenship, fairness, and leadership. There's your social management, social awareness. Humanity, again, humanity is falling under the social awareness piece. Love and kindness and social intelligence. Courage is the 5th one. Bravery, persistence, integrity, and vitality. Self-awareness, self-management, and wisdom, creativity, curiosity, open-mindedness, love of learning, and perspective. I'll tell you what, teachers who have developed character strengths of human beings and embedded this into the learning of their students, both little and big, have seen tremendous growth and potential in building resilience and hope and helping students become the people that they are always meant to be in this world, people who are loving and kind and courageous and supportive, good people of the world. And you've heard me say over and over and over again, I believe that the number one job of all educators is to help mentor and develop good human beings. We don't teach math or science or reading or 1st grade or math or 12th grade, preschool, elementary school, high school, middle school. We teach human beings. And when we really invest in the character strengths of ourselves, reading books and asking and inviting students, which character strength do you most identify with? And if they pick one of these, and you can do all kinds of cool stuff. You can look at history, the people of history, do it through an equity lens, people of color, people from different countries. Find courage in the pages of our history books, our accurate history books, and let children connect with other people from history through the value of character. It's pretty profound. Mindful practices for social awareness. There are 4 main character strengths that are at the core of the definition of mindfulness. They're self-assessment, management, curiosity, and non-judgment. And engaging in mindful practices assists humanity in developing all of these character strengths. So the main mindfulness practice for cultural responsivity is loving kindness. And so I have recorded myself doing a loving kindness practice, and that's up on the DOE website, but I've also given you the link here. But I thought it would be nice if we took a break and we could sit in a loving kindness practice, starting with just some mindful breathing and moving into that body scan, and then sitting in that heart center place. So the invitation would be, if you're interested in this part of our webinar, to again just sit back and feel yourself become anchored, allowing your feet to hit the floor. Feel yourself become grounded, softening your eyes or closing your eyes if you would like to. And just starting to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Some people like to put a hand on their heart, feel the beating of their own heart, and also a hand on their belly so they can feel a rise and fall of their stomach, and just start tapping into breathing on purpose without trying to regulate or change. The in-breath in through your nose and the out-breath through your mouth. noticing the rise and fall of your stomach. Taking a second just to anchor the breath. So noticing as you're breathing, whether a memory or a thought or a plan begins to surface, and using either RAIN, recognize, allow, investigate, and then non-attachment, non-judgment, letting it float like a cloud, and also anchoring by saying here or present. Again, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Start the body scan, noticing your toes and moving your awareness from your toes to your ankles to your knees, and knees to hips. And just noticing on purpose your legs. Noticing any area from the hips to the toes that might be holding on to some tension or pain. Just loosening and allowing the legs to become long and heavy. Notice your belly. Again, the rise and fall of your belly. This is your core sitting up straight. Noticing your shoulders, letting them drop. Your neck. Noticing your arms, letting your arms become heavy and long. Fingers are open, palms are up or down. Notice your jaw. Let your jaw be loose and allow space between your top teeth and your bottom teeth. Your tongue can be loose inside your mouth. Notice your facial muscles. Allow there to be just gentle flow around your eyes, your forehead, your eyebrows. Just hover your awareness just above your hairline and gently sweep your awareness from the top of your head all the way down your feet and body, and settling back onto the heart center. And just for a small moment, noticing the beating and the rhythm of your own beautiful, unique heart. And giving a small nod of gratitude to the heart for keeping you alive with all other systems of the body. And up until now, most of us just took this for granted. And stepping away from the physicality of the heart and going deeper into loving kindness. First, we start this practice by being loving and kind to the self. And so saying to yourself, may I be well, may I be safe, may I be healthy and happy, may I be free in this still small moment of all pain and suffering, and may my heart be filled with great joy, empathy and compassion for myself, forgiveness, and the knowledge that I am enough. I am doing my best. Breathing that thought in through your nose, out through your mouth. Just sitting in that loving kindness space for yourself for just a moment. The next piece of this practice invites us to dig a little deeper and to have loving kindness for people we love, trust, and we know they love and trust us back. And so seeing as you build that loving kindness net of protection or circle of trust around you, start to see people in front and back, to the right and left and in between, all the people you love and care about. And it will be easy for you. Seldom is it difficult to wish loving kindness to the people we love. And so we start there by saying, may each of you be well. May each of you be healthy and happy. In this moment, may you be free of all pain and suffering, and may your lives be filled with great joy, deep empathy and compassion for yourselves and for me. Forgiveness, trust, and notice how your heart feels when you give that loving kindness to the people you love. Notice how there is no resistance. It is pure and it is easy. Just like you, each one of those people you love has a circle of humans that surround them. And you are part of that circle. And just like you, those people, some you know and some you don't know. And some you even know and maybe have decided you do not like, or there is no forgiveness for something they've said or done. And you may notice a slight pulling away or resistance in this practice. And the invitation is just to be, to allow. If you sense or know or see somebody who has caused you pain or suffering, or maybe even caused your loved one pain and suffering, the practice asks you to dig deep for humanity and hold space for them, not saying that you love what they did, but offering loving kindness to them as humans and saying on purpose, may you be well, may you be safe, may you be healthy and happy. In this still small moment, may you be free of all pain and suffering. May your hearts be filled with joy, empathy, and compassion for yourself first, and then outward to the world. Notice what your heart and your body does now. And notice if you pull away. And if you do, and you're noticing yourself pulling from the practice, that is okay. Know it is natural. Sit with this resistance if it's for you, and be curious about it. Are these people even here still? And notice as you move out, each circle around each person goes deeper and longer and farther out into the world, across the globe, until you get to a place and space where you know none of the people. And can you, in the practice, wish humanity well? Thinking of all the people of the world, we say, may you be well and safe, healthy and happy in this still moment, free of all pain and suffering. I wish you well. May you develop and know compassion and empathy for yourself, forgiveness and understanding, and may your lives be free of suffering and pain. And notice how that feels when you push out to people you don't know. And slowly move yourself back to where you are, back to yourself, breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. Again, in through your nose, out through your mouth. One last time. In through your nose, out through your mouth. When you're ready, a collective big breath. Wiggle your wrists, your toes, stretch. And that's the practice of loving kindness. And when we work in that space of loving kindness and we practice that every day for ourselves, then we can be free to give loving kindness. It's understanding and forgiveness, empathy and compassion. What might it be like to walk in that person's shoes? Doesn't mean you have to like it. Something changes in our neurochemistry when we go from anger and bitterness and judgment, which is flexion, move out, to forgiveness. You know, people talk all about forgiveness is often not for the person you're forgiving, but it's for ourselves. It's for us. so we don't get trapped in that bitterness and anger. So that's an essential piece to your own social awareness. You cannot look at other people, especially people who you're afraid of or cause you to have fear, with a place of compassion and understanding if you can't extend loving kindness to yourself and to others. So I've put together some resources for you to explore your own social awareness and diversity: the Harvard Implicit Bias Test, the Cultural Responsive Book List. There are tons. Books to explore for yourself, and there is a beautiful movie list for children and adults that really unpacks cultural awareness and responsiveness and builds our own social awareness skills. I hope that you will take a minute and over the next few days share what you've learned about social awareness and mindful practices that support social awareness with people you love and trust. May you each be well and safe and healthy and happy. Thank you so much for tuning into this work, and I will see you next time. There are 2 more pieces in this practice, and the next one is relationships, and the last one is responsible decision making. So until next time, thank you so much. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and be well. Thank you.